Hello, welcome back. We are once again recording a World Cup Daily podcast, this time for day 3. And for once, we have other people on the call who are meant to be here as co-hosts of Talk Hockey Radio. Simon and Taff have successfully graduated from Keely's Understanding Hockey course. I don't know exactly what it entails, but Taff is not appearing on camera for some reason, possibly because he's been trapped in a basement for the past 2 days learning stuff about hockey. Because Keely doesn't trust them, she's decided to sit in on the call and she's going to give them passing or failing marks at the end. So if they don't come back, we know why. But not to get out of this unscathed, Keely has decided that she's going to come back and fill in some of the stuff that me and Tommy missed yesterday in regards to umpiring. Though it is not the 2 disallowed Spanish goals that we forgot to mention. It is, in fact, the Chinese penalty stroke that was given early in the day that we completely glossed over.
Oh, yes. Should we start on that now? Just hop right in there with like the heat. Is that what we're doing today?
Hey, it's you who pointed out that I missed it out. Thought we'd get it right up at the front of the call.
Well, it's not that you missed it, really, because I didn't think it was quite that controversial until it hit the socials. And I totally forgot that India was involved. And that's why it was going to hit the socials and get super, super controversial. And if you've been to, I'm going to mispronounce his name, I apologize to him, but to no one else because I'm trying, showed Marini's Instagram where he called out the advice that he was given by persons unknown that the penalty stroke taken by the Chinese player was a good goal. And the allegation is that it was a drag. Now, the biggest problem that we have with this entire concept is that there is no definition of a drag in the rulebook. We do have a definition of a push, which can involve a long pushing motion of the ball, circular, along the ground, involving contact of the stick on the ball. And we have nothing for the drag. And I was in about, 2 hours of conversations, a text with people this morning about what the definition could be. And in previous years, I've talked about positioning of the feet, and we've really focused on that, about the back foot and the front foot and that sort of thing. And the latest European indoor hockey briefing has a few slides of explanation talking about how far the left foot steps in front of the ball, which then creates more distance and the ball ends up being released closer to the goalkeeper. That's disadvantageous for the goalkeeper. And that is too much. The problem is there's no way to objectively measure what is too far. And that's the only wording that's in that briefing. So what I've suggested is that actually the best evaluation of what a drag is when the ball gets pulled from behind the player's body. Therefore, that step is so far that the ball is being picked up behind the midline of the player's body. So when you look at, say, that briefing and you look at the examples that aren't, that shouldn't be allowed as goals, that should be determined as drags, the ball starts behind the midline of the stroke taker's body as it's being picked up and then gets swung forward from there. As I looked at the Chinese penalty stroke, it is right on the line of the midline for me. A little bit further back, and I'd say, yep, that's a drag. But unless you're totally sure, you shouldn't call that as a foul. So I understand people's perceptions of this long motion potentially being a drag, but I think that that particular stroke was right on the edge, and therefore should not be called. With all of that long preamble and explanation, what do you guys think? Does that make sense to you? Do you have more questions? Do you think I'm on drugs? Let me know.
I commented pretty much to that effect before the post got deleted, saying it would be so helpful to have a technical definition provided. I've had conflicting advice from different umpire assessors as to what is or is not defined as a drag or a push or a scoop or a flick or whatever on a penalty stroke. And yeah, it would be enormously helpful to have that definition provided.
Yeah, I mean, Keely, as you know, we've gone back and forth on this on social media in the past. I think the lack of clear definition of a drag enables such a benefit to the attacker in the way that they can manipulate the ball. I do think something needs to be kind of written into rule, because I think the closest description of a drag from speaking to you in the past is with regards to the penalty corner injection, that 1 foot has to be off the pitch to prevent a dragging motion on the injection, meaning that as long as the ball starts between your feet, it's not a drag, but no literal word of this is a drag, this is not a drag. It's just connoting from the wording they've used.
And what I'm trying to do is to find something that's objective and that's consistent, because too far of a step is not something that, Sai, you're going to be able to go out and umpire on a Saturday, and Fraser, you're going to be able to understand when you step up to take a penalty stroke. So we need something that is that, you know, you could draw as a line on a video referral decision, for example. And I don't know if that is what is too disadvantageous, because that is like, you know, what is too fun, what is too musical, what is too good. We don't really know, but I would be interested, you know, Fraser, especially because you do a lot of dissections of that particular like drag flick skill. If you went out and you videoed yourself and looked at picking up the ball at different points and how that changes your release, and whether you think that creates a better balance between the advantage the attacker has and the ability of the goalkeeper to stop the ball. But if that's still too much, then we need a different marker. And it could be that the left foot can't step in front of the ball at all or something. I don't know, which would be crazy. That would make a stroke very, very difficult to take. But maybe that's what's needed. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, potentially putting some sort of marker in front of the penalty spot, say a meter in front, and they can't cross that line, would limit that big step. Because I mean, you look at Charlier, he's 6'5", 6'6". Simon, you've met him. You're 4'8". He must have some scale of reference for how tall he is.
He is quite a tall man, yes. He's got long levers.
If he lines up right behind the ball, he's probably stepping 1.5 meters, 2 meters past. If he takes a huge lunge, what keeper is picking a flick off him at that range? Even not taking into account using an extreme low bow to generate additional pace on it.
I've had a number, I'm sure Keely has as well. I've had a number of international players send me a clip saying, "What have I done wrong?" Where they don't understand. To them, it's not a drag, and they are a drag flicker. But when they do their penalty stroke technique, they don't believe they're dragging, and yet they're getting called up on it in friendly matches or whatever. Just putting the definition in seems the easiest, simplest way of resolving what is actually quite a simple problem to fix.
Yeah.
How much is kind of that vanishing spray?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about, the vanishing spray. I think it's worth experiments to be done. And do them with a variety of heights, with all genders, and see how it impacts, and find what a decent midpoint is, or at least something that we can just agree on. Okay, that's better than no definition at all. That reins it back in a bit so that it's not quite the unequal state that it is right now, as you were saying, Fraser, and then go from there. But right now we're throwing darts with our eyes closed when we use really vague terms. So let's get some science behind it, some data, get the opinions of the players, because they know what is, what is too much. But then we have to mark it out so that the umpire nerds can actually get some solid decisions that they can defend and are justifiable for everyone.
And we'll move on to the games from today. First game, we had Chile taking on Japan, with Japan running out 3-0 winners, which I think was quite an upset. Having watched Chile in the previous game playing so well, the way they kind of broke down in this caught me quite off guard. Keely put a mark against them. Don't invite him back.
I definitely will. And I wasn't going to say anything about the matches, but I did watch that match because I watched almost everything today. And yeah, Fraser, I agree. It was a real surprise. And Japan seemed surprised as well. I don't think that's one of the things. They're just such a modest group of athletes. And I thought they were really delighted with how effective their options were. And I can't recall exactly how they scored their goals, but there wasn't, it was just one of those, they were executing on their opportunities and Chile just weren't. And they got so frustrated and put a lot of pressure on themselves. I could just see it mounting and mounting and mounting. And they just started clenching their sticks even tighter in their hands. So tough to watch from a PAF perspective, because I still want a second PAF team to come out and charge up the ranks here. But a good learning experience, I think, for them, that they can't take anybody as being easy pickings for them, because Japan definitely wasn't today.
No, it was 2 penalty corners and 1 field goal for Japan.
I think that's what I thought. Yeah, and their execution rate on their penalty corners was excellent. So that's always the danger. You run into a team that is able to put their options together, and that'll be trouble.
Then on to the second game, which was United States versus Scotland, with United States winning 3-2. Who wants to go first? This is one of the games you've said you've watched.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was quite interesting. First quarter was pretty much end to end, and it looked quite exciting until the second quarter, where it was pretty much one-sided, with USA coming out on top. With, I think, the third quarter was again pretty much similar to the first quarter, where again it was end to end when they came back after halftime interval. But the fourth quarter, I actually just watched it now. The fourth quarter wasn't as exciting. A lot of big turnovers in the middle of the pitch, but not much, deep penetrations and stuff.
Yes, I mean, I'd agree with you on the first quarter being really end to end. The second quarter, I think, was a little bit more even. I think Scotland were very unlucky. They really gifted United States that second goal. The missed pass was really the best that could really have been played. And to be fair, she took it well, and the finish was pinpoint.
The thing is, Costello doesn't make that many mistakes like that anyway.
Yeah, I think Scotland, which they didn't have in the first game they played, came out with real fire in the second half. Despite the fact that they tuned down, they were really kind of putting it to the United States. I'd say the third United States goal came against the run of play. Long breakaway, won a penalty corner, put it away.
Yeah.
But what I did like was that Scotland didn't then disappear. They kept chasing the game and got it back to 3-2. They applied a lot of pressure in the final quarter, didn't create a huge number of chances, unfortunately.
No. I mean, that second goal from Scotland was absolutely a rocket, wasn't it? And even in slow motion, it looked very quick.
Third game, I think, is where we had a run of really exciting games, I think, from this point, with Pakistan taking on Wales in this one, finishing 3-3. But the swing of momentum in this game was all over. I think it was Pakistan went 1-0 up early, then Wales came back in the second quarter, equalised and took the lead within about 30 seconds. I think it was penalty corner, restart, high turnover into the D score. And then Pakistan in the last quarter had a quick turnaround again of only a minute or two from being 1 goal behind to being 1 goal ahead. And then Wales levelling things up late on to keep it 3-3 for the final whistle.
For me, that was a little bit more exciting to watch. Like you're saying, Pakistan came out with guns blazing in the first quarter that they basically scored, and then obviously Wales didn't like that and actually fought for their first goal and second goal as well. I was very surprised that they sort of like caught Pakistan on the back foot with their second goal straight off the centre. But sometimes that's how it happens, isn't it? Really, the second goal by Pakistan was from a drag flick. Pakistan's third goal was open play. I think it was a quick turnover, and they sort of like came in, took the ball into the D and had a really good strike on it. Did Wales get a penalty stroke? Didn't they?
They did, yes.
Furlong scored that, didn't he?
Furlong.
It was
Yeah.
Furlong.
That was another good like penalty stroke.
Almost like he's a professional.
Yeah.
And it was a big Rod's 100th match for Wales as well. Yeah, very entertaining. I wondered if Keely would like to pass comment on the handling of the tension in that match.
I thought it was really, really well umpired. It was, I think, we saw a fantastic advantage goal for the first Pakistan goal, where it was a penalty stroke offense, and it's always risky to play advantage off a penalty stroke. And on the left-hand side, so Steve Rogers and Sean Edwards in that game, and the two of them had different energy that they brought to the game. And what I was doing at the watch party with the umpires that I was with was asking them to sort of watch their different approaches and how the players responded. And I think at one point early in the match, Sean was a little bit, I would say, a little more forceful in trying to tell the players, no. But his style, when he's at his most effective, is when he's super chill and calm and just really nice and slow about things. And he got back to that after that first quarter sort of wound its way through. And I thought the balance between the two of them really worked out throughout the match.
Yeah, someone's posted it on one of the Umpire Facebook groups, and just that specific bit about how to handle conflict. And it was really nice, but I basically sort of said to them, this isn't good, please sort yourselves out. And then he also addressed the Welsh captain, who ignored repeated instructions to not try and talk to them during video referral. So yeah, it was just a really well managed situation where lots of tension, and he just, went through the process of dealing with each thing succinctly and not letting the pressure get to them.
So the next game, again, very exciting, was France versus Malaysia, which also finished 3-3, with France getting a late equaliser to tie the game up. Another kind of curveball from Malaysia, who, again, earlier in the tournament, I didn't think were really firing, but yet came out like a team possessed in this one, opening the scoring quite early, holding off France quite well up until a penalty corner, and then not kind of backing down as the French started piling on the pressure, taking the lead. Malaysia came back, scored 2 goals either side of the third quarter break, and really defended well when France pulled their goalkeeper and really just camped outside their 23 for the last 5-6 minutes. Not quite sure why France, after getting the equaliser, pulled their goalkeeper back onto the pitch with, I think, 50 seconds left on the clock. But that was an odd choice when they'd just got one to equalise and had all of the pressure, but maybe they were worried about losing the result at that point. So we'll move on to a game which I assume everyone watched, which is India versus England. And as always, a perfectly pleasant game with no things to discuss whatsoever. Everything went perfectly smoothly and no one was upset. I'm obviously joking. Keely, what's the point we're going to talk about during this game?
I don't know. There's so many. Which was the one in this one?
So the point I wanted to talk to Keely about is the penalty stroke referral from England, where there was a stick tackle on the player. It was switched back to the injector. It wasn't the greatest of balls back to him, so he had to take it round the keeper who had rushed across. As he rounded the goalkeeper, he was then stick tackled, and it went up to review, and England were awarded another penalty corner. Now, I've seen people asking why it wasn't a stroke. I've seen people saying that the ball didn't leave the circle and that's a foul, and so it should have been a defensive hit. And I've seen people saying it should have been a penalty corner. My understanding is that because the ball had not left the circle, a goal cannot be scored. Therefore, it is not a goal-scoring chance and is just a foul within the circle, so is a penalty corner. I can't tell if this is a happy explosion or an angry explosion, but for the audio listeners, Keely looks like she's about to explode.
I'm not angry. As Holly Robinson said, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. So unfortunately, that's incorrect. There are two grounds on which you can award a penalty stroke. And the first is when an unintentional foul prevents a probable goal. The second is when an intentional foul is acted upon, occurs against a player who is in possession or likely possession of the ball inside the circle. And the first one, the probable goal scenario, the unintentional foul, is where the ball must leave the circle and the goal must be a potential to occur. But the second one doesn't require a goal scoring opportunity. There is no probable goal in the second criterion whatsoever. So this goes back to, I will give him credit. I don't like to say his name too often, but the husband of Hannah Harrison, Matt Harrison, and I were having a discussion about this because he called me up and said, am I on drugs? And we talked about the rule and how we believed that a penalty stroke was the correct decision in that situation. He went digging back through the annals and found a briefing starting in 2017 that set this out. And if you've been around level 1, so entry level beginning rule teaching for any period of time, you've taught this rule that a penalty stroke can be called for an intentional foul despite the fact a goal could not have been scored, because the action of that horrendous tackle and things like that still is a disadvantage to that player and still needs to incur the correct team penalty. Does that make more sense to you now, Fraser?
Yeah, makes sense as to why a penalty stroke was one of the possible outcomes.
Yes.
It is entirely dependent on the intent you put on the defender.
Right. But I think in that situation, the video umpire made it quite clear that he'd adjudged it to be an intentional foul, but he could not award a penalty stroke in that situation. And that is just a misreading of the rule and a misunderstanding. But hey, sometimes these extremely rare situations give us the opportunity to talk about it and reaffirm the consensus that the community needs to hold about it. So cool scenario for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so over to Simon to talk about the actual game.
Quite a topsy-turvy game at times. Both teams had periods of dominance, but I think in the second half, India dropped off, and then in the fourth quarter, dropped off massively. They picked up a green card for deliberate encroachment in the 25, which resulted in a penalty corner, which I think England scored. And that 2-minute suspension had quite a heavy impact, because that's when England really sort of asserted themselves properly in that little period. There's some nice goals. Nick Bandrak, once again, on very good form. And Stuart Rushmere was fantastic and one of the best performances I've seen him put in. The composure and ability to just weave through sticks and feet was unreal. From the Indian side of things, I think they'd be disappointed. I think the first goal went straight down the middle. It was a drag flick from Bandarak. And obviously he stepped well to throw the goalkeeper the wrong way. But I think you'd be pretty disappointed as a goalkeeper to concede a drag flick down dead centre of the goal.
That's the fourth goal.
Sorry?
That's the fourth goal.
Or was it fourth goal? Sorry.
It was the fourth goal. The first one was open play, ball into Bandrak, who took a first-time sweep and lifted it over the keeper as he rushed out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one.
Henry Croft doing what Henry Croft does, receiving the ball anywhere in the circle and just hitting it so hard. I think the dimples came off the ball. Absolute throwback. And I think he's fantastic. Harmanpreet's drag flick. I think if I'd have been in full keeper gear, I'd have still ducked out of the way of it.
Did Croft actually give any chat to get his card for chat?
Immediately before the umpire spoke to the England captain, and said,
Yeah.
your entire team is too loud. Anything more, there's going to be a card. I don't know if Henry Croft said something, if someone else said something and they thought it was Henry Croft, but there was a very clear warning that the next bit of chat from England was
That bit, I didn't see or hear him do anything. But I am aware that Jonas can be quite sensitive to that sort of feedback.
But yes, a
Sorry,
good result for England, puts them through in either first or second. Hopefully they can continue the winning ways, but takes a little bit of pressure off that last game. Fifth game of the day saw Germany taking on Argentina in the women's competition, with Argentina winning 3-2 overall. I think going into the tournament, I'd have probably not been surprised. Having watched the game, it was really quite close. It could have really gone either way in that final quarter. So Argentina opened the scoring really early, I think first 2-3 minutes. They got the opening goal. And then there was a lot of back and forth. I don't know what was said to the German team at quarter time, but they came out like a different side in the second quarter and really made a battle of the game. And I think the other 4 goals were all in the final quarter. I think Argentina went 2-0 up, then Germany equalised, and then it was real end-to-end for several minutes before Argentina scored from Gorzolini with a few minutes left. And again, Germany just kept coming and Argentina held out. You can tell by the celebrations afterwards how close a game it was, because they were celebrating like they'd won semi-final match.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me hopping in on this one, because I did watch this, and I think for me as a women's hockey fan, this was a match that I really wanted to see, not because it was necessarily the top level that those teams can ever play in, but it was a real back and forth. And we don't see as many of those sort of rapid momentum changes in top flight women's hockey, or we haven't done for the last, I don't know, decade or so. And I haven't seen Argentina yet in the 2 matches show me what their identity is. They don't seem to know exactly who they're galvanizing around. Granado has dropped back in the field a little bit. She's now playing more as a midfielder, which has really changed things for how because they used to just always seek her up top, and now it's a little bit more confusing. They just don't seem to quite have that identity. Are they going to be playing a real run and gun counterattack, or are they going to play structure, or what are they going to do? And I think that they're vulnerable, and I think they know it. And that's why it was such a big deal to be able to hold on for this victory. At the same time, Germany is not as strong as what we've seen. We know they're in a rebuilding phase. Mentioned this on the pod last night. And so it wasn't the best of either of these teams, but it was incredible fight from both of them, taking it back and forth. But it was a chunky game. And I don't think the umpires necessarily helped that along with how they were managing things. And there's ways that we can promote flow with our whistle timing and with our decision-making quality that can really create the best hockey. And I'm not sure if we had that in that game. So I don't often say things like that, but I think it was truly the case. And there's a lot you can learn from watching a game like that as an umpire as well. But yeah, really, really interesting, like an interesting match to watch for the result and the emotions of both the teams.
Yeah, and an interesting point on Granato. The commentator was saying that they always used to look for her as a forward, but they really want to get her on the ball. And so if they can't get the ball to the forwards, they're dropping her into midfield.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's the best decision. If you're pulling players back from more attacking positions because you can't get the ball to them, I don't think that's a long-term solution. It might do as a quick fix in some games, but I think when they come against stronger opposition, that can be their undoing. So I don't know.
Yeah, at the same time, it's not unprecedented for a player who's a top forward to start dropping back in the lines as their experience grows and their value as a distributor of the ball and as a pivot in the center of the pitch grows. And that might be what they're seeing in Granato in terms of her skill set, that she's getting her vision is improving to the extent that she's even more valuable there. And they're starting to make that transition to get her there. And hopefully she can be more of an Aymar type player who would be attacking from the center mid, and she would just run through everybody and score all the goals, even from the midfield, through all the time that she played. So it's something to think about. I recognize what you're saying, but maybe they have a grand plan in place that goes past this particular World Cup and past LA and is looking even further ahead.
So the next game was Australia versus Netherlands in the women's. I was chatting online to some of the Dutchies on Field Hockey Hub, and there was some nervous energy from the group because Australia really were not letting Netherlands coast by in this game and really made a battle of it. I think the 4-2 scoreline flatters a little bit. I think Netherlands probably did deserve the win, but I'm not sure if they really deserve to win by 2 with that display.
I was, again, surprised to see it so close. I thought the result the other day, was it 2-0? I heard what you said about the game, and then now 4-2 over Australia, who, generally speaking, are nowhere near the Netherlands level. We spoke before when Paul van As was in charge of Holland and how they were functional rather than Dutch, in terms of a hockey, playing nice, attacking, flowing hockey. Instead, it was, let's win the game. And I'm surprised with their current coach that they're not ripping teams to shreds. And maybe, obviously, I haven't seen the game, so maybe then they're just sat in first gear and they've got loads of other gears to go through still. But yeah, a 2-goal margin against those two teams surprises me.
Yeah, so there was a penalty corner goal in the first quarter for Netherlands. I think they then went 2-0 up and Australia got to 2-1. And then it sat at 2-1 for a very long time before Australia got back to 2-2. And the Netherlands kind of geared up a little bit and were able to make an opening to retake the lead. And then as Australia tried to push out from there, they just left gaps. Not helped by, I think they picked up a card quite late on. I think it was just before the goal, they picked up a green card, so had to defend quite hard with 10 players. And then as soon as that player came back on, Netherlands were able to find a gap and get another goal. And then I think Australia picked up another card just after the goal. So they then didn't really have the players on the pitch to go and press as they had done for the majority of the second half and chase the game. But it was a real close game, and I was not expecting that. Maybe it's a little bit of home pitch nerves, but it's not what we've been seeing from the Netherlands recently.
I got to chime in here too. I think you can't overstate Bartram's contribution and the penalty corner defense contribution to that game, because they, I think, have it appears like they have done a ton of work in trying to figure out how to stop Yibiansa, and it looked very effective most of the time. In fact, wasn't the first goal an option play that the Dutch used? I'm pretty sure it was. It was the option to Veen.
The first goal,
yeah,
Janssen.
It
right.
was Janssen. Okay.
I think you mean the third.
The third. Okay.
I mean, was the slip to inject her and then back to just behind the penalty spot for the tap in.
That's the one. That's the one I'm thinking about. So I mean, to say the words penalty corner and option when you're talking about the Dutch women just goes to show you that they had to do something different in order to capitalize and shake things up, because they could see that it was, I thought the PCD was that effective. So that's an interesting and very promising development. Again, if you're a fan of women's hockey and you want some more parity and competitiveness there, it's nice to have that development, and hopefully the other teams are looking at that, and we'll take some of that on board, that there are vulnerabilities. They are beatable. They can defend against Jansa. So let's see it happen.
I think it was 2 from 9 penalty corners for the Netherlands. Australia actually, I think, had more penalty corners in the game.
Yeah, they had 8 in the first quarter in that slew, in that section. It was just bang, bang, bang. It was over and over and over again, reward. And so whatever you can say about the penalty corner defense for Australia, you got to multiply that for the Dutch. And given that they don't have to defend a lot on the international stage, to be that effective over and over again was really impressive. And again, Australia needs to take a bit of a look at their proficiency there, because that would make the difference in that game.
And that leads us into the final game of the day, which was Germany against Belgium in the men's. And it was a 1-0 win for Germany, which I don't think I would have predicted going into it. And even watching the game, the defense from both teams was impeccable. I think the commentators talked about it just after the goal, but the German goalkeeper had touched the ball twice, they thought, and the Belgian goalkeeper hadn't actually touched the ball yet, because they were defending that well. They weren't getting shots off. Germany scored from a penalty corner. I think they only had 2 in the game, and the first one they scored.
That for me is a surprising result as well, like you're saying.
Yeah, Belgium with home pitch advantage. I think they came out a little bit too hot against France.
Oh, okay.
We talked about this when Keely was on the other day. The opening ceremony rave got them too hyped up. So I don't know if they were trying to come out a little bit more controlled, a little bit more considered in this game, but they just never seemed to really hit the levels that they'd hit in that first game in terms of adrenaline hockey, I would call it. Like the end-to-end, we're going to run the opposition into the ground. It became almost like a chess match. And I just don't think it really suited Belgium, and kind of played a little bit into the German team's style of play, their tactical discipline and how they set themselves up. I think you kind of have to unnerve them or shake them in some way of that kind of adrenaline running, chasing into a corner where they're going to give up on it.
Yeah.
But credit where it's due. Germany had one chance at a certain point in the game and they put it away, and they held out for the rest of the game.
Can I toss something in about the umpiring and the management of the game in this one?
Yeah.
Since we had some compliments for the Pakistan-Wales game and should have done for England-India as well. I thought this game was fantastically managed. And if you want to see what the effect of early green cards has in a match that could be extremely volatile and very physical, watch this one. I think it was 8 minutes, so seven minutes into Q1, Kuhn pulled out the first green card for an overly physical, just, trying to press and steal the ball. There was another one that was Germany, a Belgian one about 3 minutes later, another green card. Gareth followed it up with a Belgian card early in the second quarter, and that was it. Until, and when I say that was it, that's when the game really settled into really skillful flowing hockey, and it wasn't the physical battle that it could have devolved into. Until Belgium pulled Vincent van Asch, and then Hendricks was in a position in the middle of the pitch, one-on-one with somebody who was obviously going to beat him, and he just had to break down the play. So he got sent off with a green card, which probably should have been a yellow, but whatever. And that meant he wasn't available when Belgium won a penalty corner with 1 second left in the match. And that ended up being, I think, the difference. I can't even remember if Bone was on the pitch at the time, but the PC obviously didn't work out. And I think if Hendricks had been out there, it would have been a totally different story. So that, to me, that little drama of that situation was a big storyline in the game.
Yeah. And I think the commentators also called attention to it. The management of the physicality.
Yep.
I think Simon Mason was saying, if he doesn't give that first green card, the next card or the next tackle is probably a yellow card worthy tackle because no one's called them out on it.
Exactly. So for all the kids at home who are wondering about, should you sit on your cards because you don't want to go too early because you don't want to end up having to throw cards like confetti and whatever cliches that you hear old people using, that is not going to be a fear. You set the standard early, players will hopefully understand and fall in line. If they choose not to understand, that's on them. But your job is to tell them where the line is and then let them play great hockey for the rest of the match.
But it was always going to be physical right from the start with Belgium and Germany anyway, wasn't it?
It's definitely a known trait.
Yeah.
For both of them, that they're not afraid to mix it up in terms of physicality. So that takes us to the end of the day. Keely, if we can have their assessments back by first thing tomorrow, we'll decide whether or not they're allowed back on the podcast.
Those are definitely 2 panel performances.
You can find Keely at FH Umpires pretty much everywhere. You can't find Taff or Simon anywhere. We're back into Keely's re-education facility. Thank you very much for listening. See you again tomorrow.